Hi there, and welcome to Our Weekly Craft, a source for ideas, inspiration, and fun for crafters. I'm Sarah White, the chief maker at ourdailycraft.com, and today I want to talk about what crafters can and should do in a crisis. There's lots of stuff going on in the world, and as makers, we want to respond by making things, but sometimes that's not the best thing that we can do. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But first, I wanted to show you my sweater. Aww. This one is called the Color Belt Sweater. It's in my book, Color Work Knitting. And I love this sweater so much because I had this idea in my head for this sweater for years and years, and I had never made it. And so I used this color work knitting book project as an excuse to finally make this sweater because the book has patterns for multicolored yarn and then for doing stripes, stranded color work, intarsia, and slip stitch knitting in color. And so this was one of the example projects for colored yarn, obviously, and it's Nora Silk Garden, which is a lovely like a wool silk blend. So you start with this little band. That's why it's called Color Belt, because it has this little like belt at the waist, and then you pick up stitches to do the top and you pick up stitches to do the bottom. So it's kind of a fun construction method, as well as being super colorful and just a really fun sweater that I like. Emma's wearing my float skirt light that is almost done. I have just started working on the bind off, which is going to take forever, which is why there's about this much of it done. I actually suffered a little injury yesterday. We had a sleet storm about a week ago, and our driveway and front porch area don't really get a lot of sun, so even though it was 68 degrees yesterday, there was still ice on our driveway. We were going out for a walk and I just slipped on the ice and fell on my behind and on my hands, and so my wrists are feeling really gross since then, and so I haven't done any knitting or crocheting for a couple of days now. I'm trying to recuperate from that. So my 100-day project is a little bit stalled. I didn't do anything yesterday, but you know, that's fine, and I'll catch back up with myself when I'm ready. So with the Russian invasion of Ukraine and other things going on in the world, there has been a lot of response online from crafters trying to come up with ways that they can help as crafters. Whenever there's like a natural disaster or a conflict like this, a lot of knitters and crocheters and crafters have the impulse to like make something and send it. So I remember, you know, during the Australia wildfires, people were knitting and sewing and crocheting items for animals who had lost habitat and maybe lost their parents in the fires. But it becomes, you know, and that's nice when people ask for it, but it can become like its own problem when so many people are sending things and they think that they're helping, but there's not a mechanism for distributing them, or they get way more than they need, or whatever might happen that actually causes that help to be more of a difficulty. So, I mean, well, I think it's great that we do try to use our skills to help people. It's important that people ask for that help first off, but it's also important to just consider like how we can best help, and if that's really the best use of our time and talents to send items to whatever area is having a problem, or wherever there's a need for something, some kind of help. Because when there may not be infrastructure available at the time to deal with it, you know, if the postal system's not working because there's a war, you can't distribute blankets or hats or whatever, just as an example. You know, so anytime there's a problem like this in the world, the first thing, if you have the means, should always be money, because it can be directed by organizations on the ground there to what the most important needs are. So it's important to take the time to find either a group that's based in Ukraine, or if there's an international organization like the Red Cross or Doctors Without Borders that you normally contribute to make sure that that money that you're giving is being directed to help people in Ukraine or refugees from that conflict. That's like the first thing that you should do if you're able to. And then if you want to get into, well, how can I help specifically as a maker, then there are other things. There's been a lot of talk online about supporting Ukrainian makers and artists. So you can go onto Etsy or Ravelry or wherever you might shop for patterns and look for designers who are based in Ukraine. If you're buying digital products, it's still possible to do that. Don't, order something that needs to be shipped, obviously, because again, that might just not be possible right now. But ordering patterns that are digital from people based in Ukraine is a little way to help directly. And it's kind of nice to think, well, there's this individual person who I'm helping, even if it's only a few dollars. It's something. And because there has been kind of this movement online to support those artists, it adds up over the hundreds of knitters, crocheters, cross stitchers. Buying patterns from those people does make a difference for them. And while there's some worry about bank transfers not being able to happen right now, at some point they will be able to access those funds, and it will be useful to them at that time, even if it's not available to them immediately. Though we hope, of course, that there's a way for them to get that money and use it now for immediate needs. It's still a way of helping, because there's going to be problems and need in Ukraine for a long time, whatever the resolution of this finally is, and whenever that happens. So if it's not us making things to send, is there a way to make things and still make them useful? And I think the answer to that is yes. We just need to look at it in a different way. So instead of making something and sending it to Ukraine, Australia, wherever in the world people are in need of help from the outside world, maybe it's, I made this blanket and I'm selling it, and the proceeds will be donated to an organization that can help. Maybe it's, I have this pattern that I want to sell for as a fundraiser. So there's Mr. Domestic, for example, has a crochet sunflower pillow pattern, because sunflowers are the national flower of Ukraine, of course, that he's selling, and the purchase price of the pattern is going to an aid organization in Ukraine. I have seen several designers in different genres doing things like that. I've seen people who are auctioning off hand knit goods or crocheted goods as a way to raise money. And I think that that is a really great way to use your skills in a way that helps, but it's not going to be a burden to people in Ukraine or refugees who, maybe a blanket would be a source of comfort for them right now, and to know that people in the outside world are thinking about them, but it's a strain on resources locally to receive the packages, to figure out what's in them, to figure out where to send them, to get them actually to the people, is just a lot. And really, I think that money is going to be the most important thing for a long time. And if there are specific calls for handmade things, then that's fine, and you can absolutely respond and make things and send them. with a happy heart. Though, because things take time to make, it's important to like check again before you send to make sure that they're still collecting items, because it could be, you know, that they're overwhelmed with people sending things in the beginning and then they're like, okay, we really don't need any more, we don't want any more, we can't process more than what we already have, so please don't send more. And then in that case, that might be, well, I have this thing now that I made and I can't send it, or you might want to sell it or auction it off among your community to raise funds for some worthy cause in Ukraine or elsewhere. So really that's that. I thought I had a lot more to say on this subject, but that's the main thing is just, you know, wait to be asked. Don't decide that you need to send something if nobody's asked, and you know, give money if you can, and if you don't have free funds, try to use your talents for crafting in a way that can raise money, so that you can send money if you're called to do something. That's a great thing to do. So with that out of the way, a quick run through reading, watching. I finished Les Miserables yesterday morning, actually, and I was really annoyed with the book that I had because the epitaph that ends the book was in French and there was no translation, so I had to Google it, and that was a little annoying because I think I lost something of the power of it by having to go look it up when I had finished the book. You know, I'm glad that I read it. I won't say I loved it, but it was good. And, you know, again, I find value in reading hard things and big books, and I'm glad that I did it for that purpose. I just started Deacon King Kong by James McBride, I think is his name. The one he wrote, The Good Lord Bird, which won, I think, the National Book Award a few years ago. I'm only a couple chapters in, so no verdict on that yet, but his writing is fun. And I also finished Inventing Anna this morning, so it's been like a week of finishing things. The last 2 episodes are hard, and I didn't really enjoy them, and I feel like the journalist who the story is centered on, the real life journalist Jessica Pressler, needs to like come out and say, okay, that part didn't happen, because I'm pretty sure I mean, I don't want to spoil, but I'm pretty sure that several of the things that happened in the last couple of episodes did not actually happen, and they don't make her look great as a journalist. And it kind of hurts my heart as a journalist to be like, oh, I don't think that really happened. I hope that didn't really happen. And so I don't know, I might do the Tinder Swindler, which is fun to say, next, just to keep on that like grift genre. I don't know. So I'm, you know, starting new things. Again, my 100-day project is stalled for a day. I ripped out the sweater that I was making, which I showed you a few weeks ago, I think. The increases on it were just weird, and I don't think the pattern math makes sense, so I ripped back to the neckline and am about to start over if my hands will let me. I have the skirt that's almost done. I'm starting 2 new sweater test knits. One's on hold as the designer works through some issues, and the other one, the original is a striped sweater, like it's a rainbow stripe, and I don't think I have yarn for a rainbow stripe, but I'm trying to figure out like how I want to stripe it and what I want to do. So I haven't started that yet. I'm kind of in limbo with all my projects right now, which is a weird place to be. I'm working on some other things that I'll embroidery type things that I'll share with you when I'm done with them. It's lots of in the works things that are fun. So yeah, and I would love to hear if you have some shows that you've been watching and enjoying. because I'm kind of in the midst of figuring out what my next thing is, and what you're working on. I'd love to hear as well. And plus your thoughts on giving as a charitable thing as crafters, like giving tangible things. You know, if you've done that in the past and contributed to those kind of calls for things, I'd like to hear about that, and just in general what you think about that whole concept of making things to send to other countries or to people in crisis, or what you do instead, or if you've used, you know, making a thing and selling it, or making a pattern and selling it as a way to raise funds. I would love to hear that, because I'm kind of thinking about doing something, but I haven't figured out what it is. But again, the need is going to be there for a long time. I feel like there's this big rush of people doing things that will be over quickly. Maybe it will be over faster than the conflict is, and even once it's over, whatever that looks like, whenever that happens, there's still going to be a lot of need for a really long time. And so that there's room for me to like think about what would that look like, and how do I want to approach it, and all of that. So if you have thoughts, if there's a pattern you'd love to have that could be used to raise money for Ukraine, I'd love to hear about that, and what you're making, reading, watching, all that good stuff. And I hope you have a crafty week. I'll see you again soon.